I'd like to read. It's in a book of poetry, but I don't know if it's poetry. It's a quote by somebody named W.H. Murray. And some of you have heard me quote this. It's in a book. It's an older book, definitely 20th century anyway. But it was published by Harper Perennial, and it was done in 1992. So, 30 years or so. And it's still available, but it's not, it still has the name The Rag and the Bone Shop of the Heart, which I think it's a quote from either William Butler Yeats or John Keats. You probably have heard me. I never know what's the difference, except there were different times, But yeah. And it was published when Robert Bly, who's a well-known poet and translator, he might be more well-known as a translator, was really into promoting work in a group of men, They were called a group of men, men's groups, I did go to one for about 4 or 5 months around here. Anyway, so the book itself is called, that quote from Yeats or Keats, and then subtitle is Poems for Men. Kind of a weird subtitle, but not that weird. It's the same book, but they took out the Poems for Men because it was a shame just to say that's Poem for Men. And the editors are Robert Bly, James Hillman, which probably you know both of them. James Hillman, the famous analyst, Jungian analyst, is dead now. Robert Bly, I don't know if I think he's still alive, and Michael Mead, who's a guy from LA, who's specialist in it's a storyteller. He used to do a workshop with the guy Hoffman, not Hoffman, but I forget, and Jack Cornfield, the guy with the breathing from Stanislas Grof and Jack Cornfield. So this is called Until One is Committed. And until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events from decision racing in one, all stream of events issue from the decision racing in one's favor, all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings, and material assistance, which no person could have dreamed would come their way. And I find this so straightforward, and it can be confirmed over and over and over again in one's own life. If you have ever thought in that direction or read something like this. I wasn't thinking of this today, but I was talking to Katie earlier, and she usually doesn't call on Wednesdays, but we made an appointment to talk today at 5. And she said, what you going to talk today? And I said, I'm not sure yet. Maybe you can give me an idea. And I told her that once I was talking to my friend in India, and I said, I don't know what I can talk today. Do you have any ideas? And he gave me something which I have no idea what it was. And I did. And Katie said something about the last Buddha Dharma. And in Zen we call it the two methods, or the two, I forget, it's the self-power and other power, joriki and toriki. I think those are the terms, joriki and toriki. And self-power and other power. And the terms in Japanese are tariki and jiriki. Okay? Jiriki is self-power, tariki is other power. And it's something that often it is said that Zen is definitely self-power, and we don't do the other power. No, we don't do that. We don't pray to some divinity, or we don't do that. Which is, in a way, true. It has its place. So I'm talking to Katie about this, and so then when we hung up, I said, well, I don't know. I don't know if I would do that, but I looked at the article and I thought, well, before I look at the article, I thought, how real is that in my own practice? You know, and of course I understand what it means, but like all of Zen or all of Mahayana Buddhism, it's all skillful means. You know, there are various ways that the person that's trying to present the Dharma have to use certain ways of speaking, so more or less get across what this teaching of the Buddha is. At the same time, when it gets to the meat and potatoes, if we could call it that, you know, of the tradition, which is to wake up to a true nature and what that is, it's very difficult and it's impossible to really grab and take and give. We know that, and yet we open our mouths and talk. We open our mouths and teach. The Buddha discovered that. He said, there's no way I could teach this. It's something so, we can talk about it, around it, but we can't really grab it. And yet, just look all the books that have been written about this. So this kind of conceit, I think I have been, you know, when I was younger in practice, I say, oh yeah, well, no, we don't do that. We don't do that. And, you know, it is not true. We do it in various forms that we don't even know it. But right before I sat down and opened my mouth, I offered incense. I offered incense at the beginning, but I wanted to offer incense before this talk. Sometimes I do on Saturdays when I talk to Argentina, offer incense and take refuge. I offered incense here and did one prostration. So I picked up the Buddha Dharma, the last Buddha Dharma, and then I picked up another one, and then another one, the last three. And all of them have plenty to say about this in various ways, not directly, you know. So I thought, oh, isn't that interesting, you know? I think, oh, maybe I'll do something about this. And then I'm trying to the last issue of Buddha Dharma is about power. So it how it came to be that Mark Uno, no, it's not Mark Uno, it used to be Mark Uno. It's a Yamada guy who's the head of the Jodo Shinshu tradition that, let me make sure that I'm saying the right thing. What? Let's see. Well, Mark Uno. Yeah, Mark Uno, that's his name. 56. So he talks about that. And then I picked up the one on power, and this Kokyo Henkel that talks about it, offering incense to the Buddha, like I just did a few minutes ago, and pretty much because of what I'm talking right now, I just wanted to actually, and you know the Buddha here, most of you know it, and it's a Buddha that was brought to me from Nepal, a friend of mine that used to go to Nepal and North Pakistan and Tibet a few times a year as a guide for adventure travel. And he brought it, and it's one of the most beautiful Buddhas I've encountered. And I'm terribly fond of it. And I've told you guys that sometimes it smiles at me, and sometimes I've never seen him grouchy, but he's kind of flat. Sometimes it just doesn't smile, and sometimes it smiles. Do I actually believe that something happens in the metal because it's cast? No, I don't think so. And yet he smiles, and sometimes he doesn't. Where's that coming from? Who cares? It's just what happens. So I'm saying that as just an example of what we do without maybe realizing it. That and then I think, well, I should give some examples of how the other power sometimes I approach it in my life, in my practice. And it's nothing new, nothing that it's that complicated. But I think it is incredibly important to, well, let me read some things, and then I'll start riffing about it. Here, the Uno is saying, when you approach something he's quoting Minor White. Minor White was a very well-known 20th century, last part of the 20th century, meaning he died a while ago in the 20th century, but he was a teacher of an old friend of mine who was a very well-known photographer, Walter Chappell. And he is a really pretty fantastic photographer. And he was involved with the ideas of Gurdjieff. That's where I met him. Minor White states, and it's being quoted here by Mark Uno, the guy from the Shodo Shinshu Church, the bishop. Minor White state, no, first I'm going to read what he has to say. At the same time, according to the highest truths, one needs to empty the mind of any fixed ideas about what one thinks a tree is or should be. Let ideas fall away until deep in meditation and contemplation, one allows the self to emerge with the tree, to become one with the tree, to become the tree. This is akin to what the famous photographer Minor White states, quote, when you approach something to photograph, it, first be still with yourself until the object of your attention affirms your presence. Until the object of your attention affirms your presence. There's a sense of intimacy, end quote. There's a sense of intimacy and oneness between subject and object that goes beyond words in the realization of emptiness that is difficult to attain as long as one is thinking about the object. Yet this does not mean one abandons words altogether. Rather, words take on a new meaning when one has had the experience of emptiness and oneness. Just as the word lover takes on an entirely new meaning once one has had the experience of being in love, the world appears illuminated in an entirely different way as one has realized oneness with the cosmos. The world does not disappear. It becomes ever more vivid as one feels one deep connection with everything, the trees, the flowers, the grasses, the sun, the moon, and the stars, the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, God, the Virgin Mary, all of these, Terragno Roshi like to call them archetypes. And sometimes when we speak as if it's something out there, which is not a bad thing at all. Because, so much of the way that we have grown as human beings on this planet, no matter how much we might have been practicing, I think sometimes what is really necessary, and this is what happens with me, this kind of stuff I cannot talk theoretically, there's an opening up to something that it's way ungraspable, and it's in a way it's not me. In a way, it's not me. And at the same time, I know when I decided to offer incense right before the talk, in a particular way, with a particular feeling that I had, because I knew what I was going to be talking about. And the half an hour meditation that we did, or 25-minute meditation that we did here, all of us together, this was present. And this idea of when Dogen tells us, when the self confirms the 10,000 things, that is delusion. When the 10,000 things confirm the self, touch the self, wake up the self, that's called enlightenment. When the 10,000 things, are there 10,000 things out there? No. And yet, when shit hits the fan, when a car crashes my car, it seems like some foreign object hit my car, and it's my responsibility, of course, So I think I think I do this a lot. I never think of it that I'm praying to some other power. I don't necessarily think that, but I do it as if. Sometimes we do it the other way around. We do it as if the higher power was inside of me. I don't like that term, inside of me, because I don't think it's in there, inside this body. What we mean that it's part of us. It's part of this body, but it's part of this body too. This body of all of us right here now. Yeah. And here Uno talks about the three bodies of the Buddha. Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. He says in the theory of the Trikaya, or the three bodies, there are three levels of layers to the body of the Buddha. The embodiment of awakening, of the Buddha, the embodiment of awakening. The first of these is the Nirmanakaya, the impermanent body of change, that is the human body that is born, matures, falls ill, decays, and dies. The second is the Sambhogakaya, the Buddha body of bliss. This represents the experience of release, bliss, and joy. That is the stage of letting go into emptiness and oneness, into emptiness and oneness, into emptiness and oneness, not two, into emptiness and fullness, not three. I forget who I was reading that does not use the word emptiness. I think it might have been, it doesn't matter. The ultimate kaya, the Dharmakaya, the body of truth, is the body of emptiness, the embodiment of oneness. Thus, within each of us is the potential to realize all three levels of the Buddha body. The Nirmanakaya, the Kaya, the body that lets go of attachments and experiences the bliss of compassionate liberation and the realization of emptiness, the ultimate Dharmakaya as the body of truth. This is expressed in terms of cosmic Buddhas. The practitioner releases into the deep flow of oneness, of profound samadhi or cosmic meditative awareness. In such moments, the center of awareness shifts from that of the finite individual in a limited human mind and body to the all-encompassing awareness of boundless compassion and non-dual wisdom. Yet one cannot remain on that plane forever and must return to the finite realm of the Nirmanakaya. However, because we're so used to identifying ourselves with these four limbs and head and torso, we forget that we are all interconnected and folding whole. Deep within, we have always been and always are, and will be that cosmic whole. But we habitually identify with one particular manifestation, with a specific hair, color, nose, shape, height, and the like. The idea that I am this particular something is, from the perspective of emptiness and Buddha nature, a dreamlike illusion, a momentary apparition, like a mirage, references that are indeed found throughout Buddhist scriptures. Experientially, in Buddhist practice, we are constantly shifting between these two poles or levels, the conventional constructed self or form, the deeper cosmic truth of emptiness and oneness, the deeper truth. The Dharmakaya is expressed in terms of cosmic Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Amitabha Buddha, the Buddha of infinite light, Mahavairochana Buddha, the sun-like Buddha of brilliant illumination. Even Shakyamuni Buddha is expressed in cosmic, virtually eternal terms, as found in the Lotus Sutra, one of the most popular scriptures in Mahayana Buddhism, where the historical Buddha take a cosmic proportion. Vaisaya Guru Buddha is the medicine Buddha, or great healing Buddha. This Buddha likely has its origin in one of the epithets or nicknames of the historical Buddha Shakyamuni, the great physician. Thus, cosmic Buddhas can be cosmic expressions of the human Buddha, who manifest the all-encompassing nature of awakening. One of the things on Saturdays, I meet with some friends and we have a lunch or late breakfast after a meeting that I go. And this friend of mine is very fond of saying, well, I am not a friend of belief. I don't believe in anything because belief is not where it's at, And you know that I have to confirm things for my own self. And yet, I remember even maybe having said that years ago. And I notice I have all sorts of beliefs that are completely part of my day. I get up in the morning and I'm ready to go, well, like I used to go to the shop. I still go out in the morning and go someplace sometimes after I'm done with dokusan. And I believe that my car is parked out here. And I'm usually not wrong. The car is parked right there. Except last time I came from Chile. No, I came from someplace. And I had left, I was coming back from Ohio. And I took the car off the driveway and left it outside because I think Gregory was coming to pick up the truck or was going to bring in the truck. And I didn't want to be with my car behind it. But then I forgot to bring my car in. And when I came back from Ohio, I unload the car and I unload. Phil brought me home. I come in the house and then I'm going to go shopping. And I come out of the house and where's my car? My car is not here. Did my car get stolen last night when I arrived from Ohio? And or what happened, And it's kind of embarrassing. And I knock at the door of the woman that lives in front. And she says, what happened to my car? And she points it on the other side of the street. It wasn't in the same, but on the other side, that I had left it there because there was no room over here. So that, I extended the story of, I know that my car is there. I believe that my car is there. I believe in the Buddha Dharma. I practice the Buddha Dharma too, I don't necessarily use, I was talking to somebody about the scientific truths that confirm that meditation is not a bad thing, actually, that it's very useful. This is, good for the scientist, it doesn't make any difference to me, I'm not going to change my mind if they say, no, meditation is just silly. But I do believe, and I also know that there is no God out there. And yet sometimes I open myself up in a certain way. I don't necessarily would use that term God, but open up to what? To what is, And there are ways, somebody, when somebody's sick and we put our name here and we send them good wishes, or some people say our prayers, meditation and prayers go for Gregory Wonder Wheel. We actually, it's a wish in our heart that we want to send something to this other person, that it's our brother. And it is another person that is sick, and yet we are one. And we realize that when we do Tonglen, or when we do metta meditation, and we send these vibes to somebody else, I mean, their vibes, you experience that. You don't experience the other person, but you experience the love that you are proclaiming to the universe, which is all of us at the same time, right here. The Buddha, when he wakes up, he says, I and all beings at the same time, simultaneously, have attained the way. The hell does that mean? I have no idea. It just means that. Simultaneously attain the way. It's one thing. All of us are one thing. So, I mean, it all happened so quickly this afternoon that the three texts that were lying right next to my bed, the three issues of Buddha Dharma, said maybe there's something here, maybe, or what was this about? This is the one, it's about the third issue back. I want to read. Well, it's like something that we do every day, many of us anyway. Take refuge. Take refuge in the Buddha, take refuge in the Dharma, take refuge in the Sangha. Are they out there? Well, in a way they are. In a way they're not. And take refuge, when we celebrate Buddha's birthday, we celebrate our own birth. At this moment, we've had a couple of times kids, young, newly born, not a month old, but maybe less than a year. A couple of times we've had Buddha's birthday party with babies. 3 times, actually. Or maybe twice only. And a lot of the ceremony was made so clear, that here we got a little one, I mean, can't even walk. And we celebrate his life. We celebrate baby Buddha's life. We celebrate our own baby Buddha, the embryo that we have been feeding and taking care of in our own body. Yeah. This poem that I read, it didn't say who wrote it. I eventually found out that there's somebody named W.H. Murray, because at the end of the poem, the editors of the book wrote a poem by Goethe, and it says, right after it finished, a whole stream of events issues from the decision of commitment, racing in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamed it would come his way. And then it says, and this is Goethe, whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it. Boldness has genius, power and magic in it. And I would say that it's pretty bold. It's pretty bold of us, to do this practice, to believe and to confirm that there is something that can wake up, that it sounds just like what the Buddha said. Sometimes we can be very self-congratulatory. In Zen, we're warned a lot about it. And yet it happens to some people. It happens to the best of people for a while anyway, sometimes. It certainly happened to Hakuin. He couldn't believe that anybody else in the world would have had the experience of awakening that he has, because it couldn't believe that if somebody has an experience like that, how could the world be the way it is? Naturally. So obviously, nobody has this experience except me. And I better get it bigger. And, he would sit and not do nothing, but just sit facing the wall, or facing, maybe they did sit facing the wall, Hakuin, I don't know. But his teacher would come in and kick him and said, "You bedwetting devil, just get out of here. Just go do stuff, Who do you think you are?" So we can get a little bit conceited, because it seems to be so extraordinary sometimes, the experience of waking up that we can have, that and probably he had many of them, and sometimes they last longer than other times, that one can think that one is in the top of the heap, I've heard people say, and I think I have said it, if you can recognize your Buddha nature, if you have seen it clearly, with the help of the teacher, of course, because otherwise we can just imagine things. You can do what you want. And what I mean by that, it's a really daring saying to say that. You can do what you want. In our practice, we don't talk too much about it, but we talk about it, but we sometimes forget that it's not just about just this. I think I mentioned it last week. It's about helping all beings or other beings to free themselves and to alleviate the suffering of others. And we cannot be the head honcho there, because I identify with all beings, and I have to, in our practice, it's not just the koan work that we do. It's not just the cultivation of attention that we do. We also take vows. We take the precepts. We practice the paramitas. All that area of ethical behavior. All the area of actually doing something in the world for the other person who happens not to be in this house, who happens to be on that other place, which is downtown, which is in the Tenderloin, shooting dope, or dying in the street and sleeping on the rain. So I think I appreciate not being conceited about no God, no deity, Sure, it's a way of, in a way, don't really expect somebody with white hair up there, That's knows exactly what I'm supposed to do. And all I want to is to make sure that I'm doing what he, because of course it's a he, wants me to do. It's a little bit more complicated than that. We as human beings, and we should be really grateful that we're human beings, because we can do what we do. We can practice. But of course, it's not all up to me. And yet. Judith Reitman, who's a teacher in Kansas, Lawrence, Kansas. She was a professor at the University of Kansas, mathematics professor, married with Stan Lombardo, who's also a teacher. They're both teachers in the Kwanum school, the Korean lineage school. And Stanley is a professor. They both retired in the last few years, professor of classics. She has this article called All Beings Liberating, comma, together, comma, at once. He says that in the school, Kwanam school of Zen, morning bell chant is bowing openly with all world beings, entering together Buddha's ocean of great vows, continuing forever to save sentient beings. You and I simultaneously attain the Buddha way. So even more, that's that little extra step. Sure, you pray out to the universe that liberates you that are sick. Together, you and I, we and I. That doesn't make sense, but you know what I'm saying. And Kokyo Henko, who was the abbot of Santa Cruz Zen Center, and Neti's teacher, Neti, our sister in the Dharma, that's also, he said she's a teacher in the Dharma Sangha, tells the story. And the name of this article is When We Give It All to Buddha. And tells the story, Suzuki Roshi tells the story that when he was young in Japan, he liked to go to Miss Ramson's house, because she was a British woman and he would learn how to speak English. And she lived in one room and had a tokonoma, the altar-like recess for displaying scrolls, flower, and ornaments in the apartment where she was living. Because it was situated near the door, Miss Ramson found the tokonoma to be a convenient shoe rack. And when she came into the apartment, she left her dirty shoes on the platform next to the Buddha. The young Suzuki, having been raised in a temple family, felt uncomfortable seeing this. One day, he took his cup of tea and respectfully offered it to the Buddha. He began to do this each time he visited Miss Ramson took to teasing him about idol worshipping, insisting it was silly to relate to a wooden statue in this way. Her friends even started to leave burnt matches on the shelf and use the incense bowl as an ashtray. Eventually, though, Miss Ransom became curious about Suzuki's devotion and asked him about the meaning of this strange activity. He told her about the three bodies of the Buddha. This is very interesting. It's very sweet that that's how he talked to her. He told her about the three bodies of the Buddha, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. The Dharmakaya, or reality body of Buddha, is the boundless space-like nature of our awareness. This is ever-present awareness that we too often miss because our attention is directed toward objects. Wineng, the sixth ancestor of Chinese Zen, says, what is the pure Dharmakaya? Everyone's true nature is originally pure, and the 10,000 things are present within this nature. The Sambhogakaya, or bliss body of Buddha, is the cognitive aspect of our awareness. Awareness is not just empty space. It also has a knowing quality that experiences life. The sixth ancestor said, what is the perfect Sambhogakaya? As one lamp can instantly dispel 1,000 years of darkness, one moment of wisdom eliminates 10,000 years of ignorance. The Nirmanakaya is the transformation body Buddha. The sixth ancestor said, what is the myriad-fold Nirmanakaya? If no thought arises, your nature is merely empty. But if a thought arises, there is transformation. Nirmanakaya is when boundless awareness, with its knowing cognition, is expressed as beneficial activity in the appearance of sentient beings like you and me, manifest in this world in a particular time and place, out of compassion for beings. This historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, is considered Nirmanakaya Buddha. You know, in our gathas and meal gathas, we say Shakyamuni Buddha, Nirmanakaya Buddha. All three bodies are our true nature, already complete, by temporarily obscured by our dualistic thoughts and emotions. If the Dharmakaya is like boundless space, the Sambhogakaya is like radiant sunlight filling the boundless space. And Nirmanakaya is like the sunlight reflected on the water, where each wave creates a momentary flash for all to see. If we look at the sunlight filling space, it doesn't look like anything in particular. It's just bright and clear. But when the sunlight touches the water, we can see the light sparkle. That impermanent manifestation of a glimmering wave is like each thought. The world appeared to us, where Buddhas can benefit beings in conventional ways because they can think and meet others and speak with them. Formless, shapeless, and graspable awareness takes form in every moment as a specific manifestation. So we can't actually separate the three bodies of Buddha. Emptiness itself is form, and form itself is emptiness. Suzuki told Miss Ransom, you think Buddha is this wooden image, but it is actually these three bodies of Buddha. He said Miss Ransom was rather amazed at Buddhism's profundity and began to take more interest in it. After about a year, said Suzuki, she had pretty good understanding of Buddhism. And one day she took me downtown to buy some incense and she started to offer it. I appreciate this story because Suzuki hadn't set out to teach Miss Ransom about the Buddha Dharma. She was inspired to learn through seeing him make offerings to the Buddha image. Dogen Senji, Kokyo writes a little bit further. Dogen Senji wrote a fascicle in the Treasury of the True Dharma Eye called Making Offerings to All Buddhas, Kuyo Shobutsu, in which he said, you become Buddha by the merit of making offerings to Buddhas. How can a sentient being who has not made offerings to even one Buddha become a Buddha? Dogen went on to say, making offerings to Buddhas does not mean providing Buddhas with what they need. It's dedicating moment after moment of our life to Buddhas without wasting a moment. What use can Buddhas make of gold and silver, even if they offered What benefit can Buddhas receive if incense and flowers are offered? However, Buddhas receive these offerings with great compassion to help increase the merit of sentient beings. If Buddha is boundless awareness, that is present here and now for each of us, the totality of everything in the universe, the all-inclusive timeless presence of all beings, we might ask what the point is in making offerings to Buddha. If Buddha is the totality of everything, then everything is already given to Buddha. But we often forget that. If Buddha is the totality of everything, then everything is already given to Buddha. But we often forget that. We think there are things that don't already belong to Buddha. We think I have a thing that's mine and you have a thing that's yours. This is normal, deluded way of thinking. To align the mind with the reality that everything is already Buddha, we can practice making offerings to Buddha. Okay, I think that's all I want to say for today. How's everyone doing? I don't see Gregory or Carol. I hope they're things are okay. Probably Gregory's very tired.